My son abandoned me at a motel and stole my money. He came back the next morning expecting to find a broken old woman. I pointed to the no vacancy sign and smiled. I didn't rent a room, I told him. I bought the mortgage. Now get off my property. The windshield wipers were losing the battle against the Nebraska winter. They slashed back and forth with a rhythmic, desperate thump, pushing aside heavy, wet snow that immediately replaced itself. Outside the windows of the cramped sedan, the world had been reduced to a swirling void of grey and white. There was no horizon, no sky, only the relentless assault of the blizzard. I sat in the back seat, my hands folded over my purse. I was wearing my wool coat, buttoned to the chin, but I was freezing. The heat in the car was turned up to full blast, blowing hot stale air into my face. But the cold I felt had nothing to do with the temperature. It was a cold that radiated from the two people sitting in the front seats. My son, Mark, was driving. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He was 40 years old, but from the back, watching the tension in his shoulders, he looked like a teenager who had crashed his father's car and was trying to figure out how to hide the damage. Next to him was his wife, Trish. Trish was scrolling on her phone, the blue light illuminating her face in the darkening afternoon. She was 38, ambitious, and currently desperate. Her boutique in Chicago, a place that sold overpriced candles and beige linen clothing, was failing. She thought I didn't know. She thought Grandma Dolores sat in her rocking chair all day watching soap operas, oblivious to the world of commerce. She didn't know that I had read her bankruptcy filing before it was even publicly indexed. "We can't keep going, Mark," Trish said, her voice tight. "The visibility is zero. We are going to slide into a ditch." "I know, babe, I know," Mark said, his voice cracking slightly. "I am looking for an exit." "We need to stop," Trish insisted. "We can't make it to Denver tonight." Denver. The lie sat in the air like bad perfume. "If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Please subscribe, like, and comment on this channel, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now, let's continue. 3 days ago, they had come to my house with a sudden, frantic energy. They told me that my cousin Martha was sick in Denver. They said she was asking for me. They said we had to drive out there immediately to say goodbye. I didn't have the heart to tell them that cousin Martha had died 3 years ago. I had paid for the funeral. I had sent a beautiful arrangement of lilies. But I agreed to get in the car. I agreed because I wanted to see exactly how far they would drive into the darkness before they finally played their hand. I wanted to see if my son was merely weak or if he was truly broken. "There," Trish pointed a manicured finger at the windshield. "Exit 300. I see a sign. Gas. Lodging." Mark swerved the car toward the off-ramp. The tires slipped on the black ice, the car fishtailing slightly before the traction control kicked in. "Easy," Trish snapped. "I got it," Mark muttered. We rolled down the unplowed ramp. The world here was desolate. It was a landscape of industrial shadows and snowdrifts. There was no town. There were no streetlights. There was only a single flickering neon sign rising out of the storm like a tombstone. The Rusty Spur Motel. Vacancy. The N in vacancy was burnt out, so it read, Vaca, CY. The motel was a single-story L-shaped structure built sometime in the late 50s. The paint was peeling. The roof looked tired. A lone pickup truck was parked under the awning of the office, covered in a foot of snow. "This is it?" Mark asked, looking at the building with distaste. "It is all there is, Mark," Trish said. She turned around in her seat to look at me. Her eyes were hard, calculating. "Mom, we have to stop here. It is too dangerous to keep driving. It looks closed," I said, making my voice sound small and tremulous. I tightened my grip on my purse. "It has a light on," Trish said. "It is fine, just for one night. We will get you a room." Mark pulled the car under the overhang of the office. The engine idled, vibrating the floorboards. "You stay here, Mom," Mark said. "I will go check availability." He opened his door and ran into the office. Trish didn't speak to me. She tapped her fingernails on the screen of her phone. Tap, tap, tap. She was texting someone, or maybe she was checking her bank balance, hoping a miracle had occurred. 5 minutes later, Mark came back. He opened the back door. A gust of freezing wind blew into the car. "Okay," Mark said, breathless. "Bad news? They only have one room left, and the heater in the lobby is barely working. It is a dump." "Oh dear," I said. "Well, we can all squeeze in. I don't mind sleeping in a chair." Mark exchanged a look with Trish. It was a look I had seen many times in my life. It was the look of two partners agreeing on the execution of a crime. "No, Mom," Mark said. "The room is tiny. Just a single twin bed. And Trish. You know she has her back issues. She can't sleep on the floor." "So what do we do?" I asked. "There is a Marriott," Mark lied. "About 10 miles down the service road. The guy inside said they have suites, but he said the road is really rough. I don't want to bounce you around in the back seat anymore." He reached in and grabbed my arm gently. "You stay here," Mark said. "Take the room. It is warm. You can rest. Trish and I will drive down to the Marriott, get some sleep, and we will be back to pick you up at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning." "Sharp." 7 o'clock? I asked. "Are you sure?" "Positive," Trish said, not looking back. "We will be here with coffee. Just get out, Dolores. Please. The cold is getting in." I looked at my son. I looked at his eyes. He couldn't meet mine. He was staring at the headrest of the passenger seat. He was abandoning me. He was dropping his 75-year-old mother at a roadside motel in a blizzard so he could drive away. "Okay," I said softly, "if you think it is best." "It is best," Mark said. I climbed out of the car. My knees popped. The wind hit me like a physical blow, stinging my cheeks. Mark went to the trunk. He pulled out my small overnight duffel bag. He didn't take out his suitcase. He didn't take out Trish's bags. He walked me to the glass door of the office. He opened it. "Go inside, Mom," he said. "The guy has the key." "His name is Joe. We already paid for the room." "You paid?" I asked. "Yeah," Mark said. "Put it on your card. Since you have the money." "Okay, Mark," I said. "Drive safely." 7 a.m., he repeated. He didn't hug me. He didn't kiss my cheek. He turned and ran back to the car. He jumped in. The sedan reversed quickly, kicking up a spray of slush. I stood inside the vestibule of the office, watching through the dirty glass. They pulled out of the parking lot. The Marriott, if it existed, would be to the right, toward the town of Lincoln. Mark turned left. He turned back onto the on-ramp for Interstate 80, heading west. Heading away. They weren't going to a hotel. They were running. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a notification from my personal checking account app. Transfer alert. $5,000 bars sent to Mark Rayburn via Venmo. Current balance, $14.22. I stared at the screen. $5,000. That was everything in that specific account. It was the pension account I let them see. The account I used for groceries and bingo. They thought they had cleaned me out. They thought they had left me stranded in the middle of nowhere with $14.22, forcing me to become a ward of the state when the money ran out. They probably planned to call the police in a week and report me missing, playing the grieving children. I put the phone back in my pocket. I looked around the lobby. It smelled of stale cigarette smoke, lemon cleaner, and despair. The linoleum floor was cracked. The wood paneling was warped from years of humidity. On the counter sat a jar of mints that looked like they had been there since the Reagan administration. Behind the counter, a man was sitting on a stool. He had his head in his hands. He was sobbing. Quiet, heaving sobs that shook his flannel shirt. He didn't even notice I was there. I took a deep breath. Most women my age would be terrified. Most women would be calling the police or crying or panicking about how they were going to survive. But I was not most women. I was Dolores Rayburn. In 1982, I bought a contaminated landfill in Gary, Indiana, for $10,000, cleaned it up, and sold it to a logistics company for $3 million. In 1995, I bought a city block in Chicago during a gang war and turned it into the trendiest loft district in the city. My son thought he had left a helpless old woman at a dying motel. He didn't realize he had just dropped a shark into a tank full of blood. I walked up to the counter. I set my purse down on the formica with a heavy thud. "Excuse me," I said. My voice was no longer the tremulous whisper of a confused grandmother. It was the voice that had made contractors cry in boardrooms for 40 years. The man behind the counter jumped. He wiped his eyes frantically with his sleeve. He was about 50 with greying stubble and eyes that looked like bruised fruit. I am so sorry, Ma'am," he stammered. "I didn't hear you come in. The wind." "You are Joe?" I asked. "Yes, Ma'am. Joe Miller. I have your key right here. Room 4. It is close to the office, so you don't have to walk far." He placed a heavy brass key on the counter. His hand was shaking. "My son said there was only one room left," I said, looking at the key rack behind him. It was full. Every single key was hanging on its hook. Joe looked down, ashamed. We have plenty of rooms, Ma'am. We are empty. Your son, he told me to say that. He gave me $20 to say we were full." "I see," I said. "And why are you crying, Joe?" "It is nothing, Ma'am," he said, sniffing. "Just allergies. Dust." "Bull," I said. "Men don't cry over dust in a blizzard. You are crying because you are in trouble." Joe looked at me. He saw an old woman in a wool coat, but he must have seen something in my eyes because his shoulders slumped. "It is the bank," he whispered. "They are coming tomorrow. 9 o'clock. "Foreclosure?" I asked. "Yes," he choked out. "My dad built this place. I grew up in room 1. But after the highway bypass was built, traffic died. I took out a loan to fix the roof, and I got behind. I owe them $212,000. They are taking it all. Tomorrow is the end. $212,000. I looked at the peeling paint. I looked at the cracked linoleum. But then, I looked deeper. I looked at the location. We were exactly halfway between Omaha and Denver. We were right off the exit. The visibility from the highway was perfect. I looked at the construction. Those weren't drywall partitions. That was cinder block and brick. Good bones. You couldn't build a structure like this today for less than $2 million. I looked at the floor again. Under the grime, that was terrazzo. Original mid-century terrazzo. Hipsters in Chicago paid a fortune for that aesthetic. Mark thought this was a graveyard. I saw a gold mine covered in dust. 212,000, I repeated. That is the payout figure? Yes, Joe said, wiping his nose. Might as well be 20 million. I don't have it. Stop crying, Joe, I said. I reached into my purse. I bypassed the personal checkbook, the one Mark had drained. I reached into the zippered side pocket and pulled out a different checkbook. This one was bound in black leather. It was heavy. I opened it. The gold lettering on the top left corner read, Rayburn Commercial Trust. I pulled a Mont Blanc pen from my pocket. Do you have fresh coffee? I asked. I can make some, Joe stammered, staring at the checkbook. Make a pot, I said. Black. And bring me the foreclosure notice, the deed, and the last 3 years of your tax returns. Ma'am? Joe looked confused. Why? Are you a lawyer? I uncapped the pen. No, Joe, I said. I am the woman who is about to save your life. Now, get the coffee. We have a lot of work to do before the bank opens at 9. The coffee Joe made was terrible. It tasted like scorched earth and desperation, but it was hot, and it contained caffeine, which was the only fuel I required. We sat in the small office behind the reception desk. The blizzard was still howling outside, rattling the single-pane windows, but inside, the air was thick with the smell of old paper and opportunity. Joe had laid out his life on the desk, the deed, the mortgage statements, the foreclosure notice, and a stack of tax returns that were stained with coffee rings. He watched me with wide, terrified eyes. like a man watching a bomb disposal expert decide which wire to cut. I put on my reading glasses. I didn't look at Joe. I looked at the numbers. Your occupancy rate is 12%, I noted, running my finger down the ledger. Traffic died, Joe said quietly, since the bypass. Traffic didn't die, Joe. It just moved 3 miles north, I corrected. You failed to give them a reason to turn the wheel. I flipped to the mortgage statement. The bank was a local outfit, Cornhusker Community Bank. They held the note. They had initiated foreclosure proceedings 30 days ago. The auction was scheduled for 10 a.m. today, but the bank opened at 9 to finalize the seizure. You owe $212,400 in principal, I said, and another $8,000 in penalties and legal fees. I know, Joe whispered. I tried to negotiate. They wouldn't budge. They want the land. They have a buyer lined up who wants to bulldoze it and put up a gas station. Of course they do, I said. A gas station is safe. A dying motel is a liability. I closed the folder. I took a sip of the terrible coffee. Grab your coat, Joe, I said, and the master keys. Where are we going? He asked. The bank isn't open yet. It's 2 a.m. We aren't going to the bank yet, I said. I am not buying a spreadsheet. I need to see the physical plant. I need to inspect the merchandise. We walked out into the biting cold. The snow was drifting against the doors of the rooms. Show me the mechanical room first, I ordered. Joe led me around the back. He unlocked a heavy steel door. Inside, the roar of the boiler was deafening. It was warm. I inspected the unit. It was an industrial cast-iron beast from the 60s. When was this serviced? I shouted over the noise. Last year, Joe shouted back. New pumps. I nodded. It was inefficient, but it was bulletproof. If this had been a modern forced air system, I would have walked away. But this was hydronic heat, radiant. It was a luxury if marketed correctly. We walked to the end unit. Room 12. Joe unlocked the door and flipped the switch. The fluorescent light flickered to life, illuminating a room that time had forgotten. The carpet was a tragic shade of brown shag. The bedspread looked like it had been stolen from a hospital. The curtains smelled of dust, but I looked past the surface. I walked to the bathroom. I tapped the tile. It was pink ceramic, original and in pristine condition. I walked to the main room. I stomped my heel on the floor. It was solid concrete slab. No squeaks. Soundproof. I looked at the furniture. It was heavy, solid wood, mid-century pieces. With a little sanding and some teak oil, these dresses alone would sell for $800 a pop in a Chicago boutique. The bones are good, I muttered. The bones? Joe asked, shivering in the doorway. Mom, the place is falling apart. The cosmetics are falling apart, I corrected. The structure is a tank. You have 20 units. You have interstate visibility. You have a retro aesthetic that millennials go crazy for. I walked back out into the snow. I looked up at the neon sign, the rusty spur. We changed the name, I said. Something kitschy. The Velvet Steer? No. The Atomic Motor Lodge. Mom, Joe looked at me like I was hallucinating. With all due respect, my son, your son, he left you here. He took your money. You don't have a car. How are you talking about renaming the place when we are both going to be homeless in 6 hours? I stopped. I turned to face him. The snow was matting my grey hair, but I didn't feel it. Joe, I said, my son took $5,000. That was my grocery money. Do you really think a woman who wears a coat with a silk lining and carries a Mont Blanc pen retires on $5,000? I reached into my pocket and pulled out the black leather checkbook. I have been buying commercial real estate since 1982, I said. I own 3 strip malls in Gary, a warehouse district in Milwaukee, and a controlling interest in a logistics park near O'Hare. I retired because I was bored, not because I was broke. And frankly, Joe, I am bored again. Joe stared at me. The wind howled between us. I am offering you a deal, I said. I will pay off the mortgage, in full, including the penalties, I will put up another 100,000 for renovations immediately. Joe's jaw dropped. You will? On two conditions, I said. Anything, he gasped. Condition 1. I take 51% ownership. I control the money, the branding, and the strategy. You keep 49%, and you stay on as the general manager. You live here, you run the day-to-day, but you answer to me. Done, Joe said instantly. I just want to save my dad's place. Condition 2, I said, my voice dropping an octave. Becoming colder than the Nebraska wind. Yes? When my son comes back this morning, I said, you do not say a word. You let me handle him. Joe looked at the fire in my eyes. He nodded slowly. Deal, he said. The sun rose over the snow-covered plains at 7:15. It was a blinding, brilliant white. The storm had broken, leaving the sky a piercing blue. At 7 o'clock, the time Mark had promised to return, the parking lot remained empty. I sat in the lobby, drinking a fresh cup of coffee, watching the road. I knew he wasn't coming. Not at 7. 7 was the lie he told to make himself feel better. He wouldn't be back until checkout time, probably around noon, to collect the debris of his mother. At 8:30, Joe pulled his truck around. Ready, Mrs. Rayburn? He asked. Call me Dolores, I said. Mrs. B. Rayburn was my mother-in-law, and she didn't have the stomach for this business. We drove into town. The roads had been ploughed, scraping down to the black asphalt. We pulled up to the Cornhusker Community Bank. It was a brick building on Main Street. We walked in at 9:01. The teller looked up. She knew Joe. Her face fell into a mask of pity. Hi, Joe, she said softly. Mr. Henderson is in his office. He is expecting you. I know, Sarah, Joe said. He stood taller than he had the night before. We are here to see him. We walked back to the glass-walled office. Mr. Henderson, the branch manager, was stuffing papers into a briefcase. He looked like a man preparing for an execution he didn't want to perform but felt obligated to finish. Joe, Mr. Henderson sighed. Please, don't make this harder. The auction is set. The paperwork is filed. Unless you have a certified check for $220,000, there is nothing I can do. He didn't even look at me. To him, I was just Joe's grandmother, dragged along for emotional leverage. Actually, Bob, Joe said, I don't have the check. Henderson shook his head. Then I have to ask you to leave the premises. The sheriff is meeting us at the property at 10. I don't have the check, Joe continued, stepping aside to reveal me. My partner does. Henderson looked at me. He blinked. Partner? I stepped forward. I placed the black leather checkbook on his desk. Good morning, Mr. Henderson, I said. My name is Dolores Rayburn. I am purchasing the debt on the Rusty Spur Motel. I believe the payoff amount is $220,415. Is that correct? Henderson laughed. It was a dismissive, incredulous sound. Ma'am, he said, this is a commercial foreclosure. We can't just take a personal check from, well, with all due respect, from someone's grandmother. It is not a personal check, I said. It is a draft from the Rayburn Commercial Trust, drawn on Chase Manhattan in Chicago. If you check your wire terminal, you will see that I am a verified Tier 1 commercial client. I opened the book. I wrote the check. My handwriting was firm, angular, the handwriting of a woman who signed demolition orders. I tore it out and slid it across the mahogany desk. Call the routing number, I said. Verify the funds, but do it quickly. I have a renovation crew to hire before lunch. Henderson looked at the check. He looked at the number. He looked at me. He picked up his phone. He dialed the verification line. I watched his face. I saw the moment the operator on the other end confirmed the account balance. His eyes widened. His face went pale. He sat up straighter in his chair. I see, Henderson said into the phone. Thank you. Yes. Authorization code 994. He hung up. He looked at me with a newfound respect bordering on fear. The funds are verified, Henderson said. The check is good. Excellent, I said. Draft the satisfaction of mortgage and transfer the deed to the new LLC Joe and I formed on a napkin this morning, Atomic Hospitality Group. I will have legal draw it up immediately, Henderson stammered. It will take an hour. We will wait, I said. Joe, pour me some of that free bank coffee. It has to be better than what you brew. By 10:30, we were walking out of the bank. Joe was holding a folder thick with stamped documents. He looked 10 years younger. The weight of his father's legacy had been lifted off his shoulders. I can't believe it, Joe said as we got into the truck. It is ours. It is really ours. It is, I said. Now step on it. We need to get back. Why the rush? Joe asked. We own it. The sheriff isn't coming. No, I said, checking my watch, but my son is. We drove back to the motel. The sun was high now, melting the snow on the roof. The icicles were dripping, a rhythmic ticking clock. I had Joe park the truck around the back so the lot looked empty. Go inside, I instructed him. Put on a fresh shirt, shave, look like a manager. What about you? Joe asked. I am going to the office, I said. I walked into the lobby. I went behind the reception desk and into the back office. I sat in the swivel chair. It squeaked. I spun around so I was facing the door, but I kept the blinds drawn so the room was in shadow. I checked my phone. No texts from Mark, no calls. He was waiting. He was stalling. He wanted to make sure that when he arrived, I was sufficiently terrified. He wanted me broken. He wanted me to be so grateful to see him that I would sign whatever paper Trish shoved in my face. Probably a power of attorney giving them control over my remaining assets, which they assumed was just the house. At 11:45, a car pulled into the lot. I watched through the slats of the blinds. It was Mark's sedan. It looked dirty, covered in road salt. They sat in the car for a moment. I could see them arguing. Trish was gesturing wildly. Mark was rubbing his temples. Finally, they got out. They looked terrible. Trish's hair was matted on one side. Mark looked pale and hungover. They had clearly spent the night at the Marriott bar, drinking away their guilt, or perhaps celebrating their premature inheritance. They walked toward the lobby door. I heard the bell chime. Ding-ling. Hello? Mark's voice called out. It was tentative. Mom? Joe? Is anyone here? Trish snapped. God, this place is a dump. It smells like wet dog. I heard their footsteps on the linoleum. Maybe she is in the room, Mark said. Check room 4. I am not checking room 4, Trish said. You check it. I am not touching that doorknob. Mom, Mark yelled. We are here. We got stuck in a snowbank. It took us hours to get back. The lie was so lazy it was insulting. Can we just find the guy? Trish asked. Hey, service. Joe stepped out from the back hallway. He had shaved. He was wearing a clean white button-down shirt he had found in his closet. He looked professional. He looked calm. Can I help you folks? Joe asked pleasantly. Mark jumped. Yeah, Mark said. We dropped my mother off here last night. Dolores Rayburn. Room 4. We are here to pick her up. Joe checked the computer screen. He typed a few keys. Rayburn, Joe muttered. Rayburn. I am sorry, sir. I don't show a guest by that name. What? Mark's face went white. She was here last night. You gave me the key. Room 4. Oh, Joe said. The elderly woman. Yes. She checked out. Checked out? Trish screeched. Checked out to where? She doesn't have a car. She doesn't have money. She settled her bill, Joe said, and she vacated the room. Where is she? Mark demanded, panic rising in his voice. Did she wander off? Is she in the snow? Oh, God, Trish, if she froze to death. She didn't freeze, sir, Joe said. She is in the manager's office. Mark and Trish both froze. The manager's office? Mark asked. Why? She had a meeting with ownership, Joe said. Go right in. Joe pointed to the door behind the desk. Mark looked at Trish. Trish looked at Mark. They were confused. This wasn't the script. Mark pushed open the swinging half door of the counter. He walked to the office door. He pushed it open. The lights in the office were off save for the desk lamp that illuminated the stack of papers in front of me. I spun the chair around. Hello, Mark. I said. My voice was steady. I wasn't shivering. I wasn't crying. I was holding a blueprints tube in one hand and my Mont Blanc pen in the other. Mom? Mark stepped into the room. He squinted. Mom, what are you doing back here? We were so worried. The roads were impossible. We tried to get back sooner. Save it, I said. Trish pushed past him. Dolores, let's go, Trish said impatiently. We have a long drive. Get your bag. I am not going anywhere, Trish, I said. What? I am not going to Denver, I said, because Martha is dead. And I am not going back to Chicago with you, because you are thieves. The room went silent. The hum of the neon sign outside seemed to buzz louder. Thieves? Mark laughed nervously. Mom, you are confused. We are taking care of you. I checked my bank account, Mark, I said. $5,000, transferred via Venmo at 6:30 last night, right after you drove away. Mark flinched. That was for safekeeping. We didn't want you to lose it. Safekeeping, I repeated. Interesting legal theory. I filed a police report this morning. The sheriff calls it elder financial abuse and grand larceny. Police report? Trish gasped. You called the police? I did, I said, but that is the least of your problems. I stood up. I walked around the desk. You left me here to rot, I said. You thought I was a helpless old woman with $14 to her name. You thought this place was a hole in the ground where you could dump your problems. I gestured to the office around me. But you forgot who I am, Mark. You forgot that I made my first million flipping SRO hotels in the 80s while you were watching cartoons. What are you talking about? Mark whispered. I bought the building, Mark, I said. You... what? I bought the motel, I said. I paid off the mortgage at 9 a.m. I own the land. I own the walls. I own the chair you are standing next to. You can't afford a motel, Trish shouted. You live on a pension, I laughed. It was a dry, hard sound. My pension pays for my cat food, Trish, I said. My commercial trust pays for everything else, including this. I picked up the deed from the desk. I held it up. Owner, Atomic Hospitality Group, LLC. Managing partner, Dolores Rayburn. Now, I said, dropping the deed back onto the desk, I have a business to run, and I have a strict policy against loiterers. I pointed to the door. Get out. Mum, please. Mark stepped forward, tears welling in his eyes. Tears of fear, not sorrow. We didn't mean it. We were desperate, Trish's store. We are broke, Mum. We need help. You needed help, I corrected. Now you need a lawyer. You can't do this, Trish screamed. We are family. Family doesn't leave family in a snowstorm, I said. I looked past them to the lobby. Joe, I called out. Joe appeared in the doorway. He wasn't slouching anymore. He looked like a bouncer. Yes, Miss Rayburn. These people are trespassing, I said. Please escort them off the property. If they refuse, call the trooper who took my report this morning. He said he was patrolling the area. Yes, ma'am, Joe said. He stepped into the room. He put a heavy hand on Mark's shoulder. Time to go, folks, Joe said. Mark looked at me one last time. He saw the mother he thought he knew, the soft, baking, knitting grandmother, dissolve. In her place was a titan of industry who had just closed a deal. Mom, he whimpered. Checkout time was 11, Mark, I said coldly. You are late. I sat back down in the chair. I swiveled around to face the blueprints. I heard them shuffling out. I heard Trish swearing. I heard the door chime. I watched through the blinds as they got into their dirty sedan. They sat there for a long time, arguing. Finally, they reversed out of the spot. They drove toward the highway. They had $5,000 of my money. It would pay for a lawyer, perhaps, but it wouldn't pay for the guilt. I turned my attention back to the desk. Joe walked back in. They are gone, boss, Joe said. Good, I said. Now, Joe, about that neon sign. The N is burnt out. But instead of fixing it, I was thinking pink. Bright pink. We are going for a Palm Springs vibe in the middle of the cornfields. Joe smiled, a real smile. Pink sounds good, Dolores, he said. Get the ladder, I said. We have work to do.